God mode. Yo, what's going on? It's someone that's no one, and welcome back to today's report. Today's report is coming from BingBang off Erowid. When this happened, 2016, the drugs used were methamphetamine, 3-MeO PCP, LSD, Etizolam, and Deschloroketamine. Also, the user does note sleep deprivation, and I just want to know, we will explore sleep deprivation on itself one day, but for this, it was more of a side effect from the methamphetamine. The doses all vary, as there was repeated use. The route of administrations were orally and insufflation. Gender, male. Weight, 130 pounds. Age, 24, almost 25. Height, 6 feet. Prior experience, normally I would say psychonaut, but LSD, mushrooms, MDMA, ketamine, benzos, opiates, stimulants except for cocaine, and a large list of research chemicals, an estimate of 50 different chemicals. And the setting, multiple locations, to name some, a friend's house, out in public, the hospital, and jail. So quite the list for this report. Definitely stands up there compared to past reports. But this report does detail two experiences somewhat. They are pretty much connected though, and describe through a series of events that make them tied together. So a lot of the substances aren't necessarily taken at the same time in this report, but each substance does seem to play an influence in making BingBang act out the way he does. Specifically, the LSD in this report seems to play the strongest role in causing the intensity he does end up experiencing. It also seems to be the most responsible for causing misbeliefs because of the psychedelic themes he experiences. BingBang does claim to have a tolerance for the meth and 3-MeO, not for LSD necessarily, and he does carelessly take strong doses in this experience, which better helps explain this. Plus then again, this combination could cause all types of things to be experienced. BingBang also describes going through various psychological issues and not being in good health, which this most likely also contributed. But I just want you all to know that some substances are described more and play a bigger role than others, but for the most part, they all seem to make the whole experience what it is. But if you want to see more of these types of combinations, or any more of these substances, let me know in the comments and I can do that. I'm sure you'll end up liking this one, so without further ado, let's dive right into this. This is a recounting of two separate events involving 3-MeO PCP, methamphetamine, and LSD. At the time of the first event, I probably weighed 130 pounds and was quite addicted to meth, so that was constantly at play in my system. I was probably doing half grams per day on average. I was pretty unhealthy. Just to give a general idea on body type and stuff. Anyway, I had been at a friend's place doing speed for at least a couple of days, so sleep deprivation was also at play. But we had also gotten some 3-MeO PCP from one of my favorite vendors, and we had been doing tiny little bumps every now and then. We had a significant dissociative tolerance from constant use of 3-MeO and other dissos, so we had good experience with our limits on 3-MeO through trial and error and several uncomfortable experiences. So we were spun and 3-MeO'd up, having a blast. I would say I had probably taken 10 to 15 milligrams near the time of the incident. Definitely a high dose, I know. Then a mutual friend of ours comes over. We spend time hanging out, doing speed, and bullshitting. After a few hours, he decides he's gonna leave, so I ask him for a ride back. Before we leave, I trade him some Etizolam for some of his acid because I wanted to trip that night at home. I get 3 hits, 2 of one batch and 1 of another. We get in his vehicle and head out towards my place. On the way home, I drop all 3 hits and we have a nice chill drive. He's one of my best friends and I am extremely high, so I'm in a great mood. He drops me off at my place and we say our farewells. I go inside and I can feel the acid creeping up on me, 30 minutes in on the acid. I turn on the TV, which only has very basic cable. and it goes on to an infomercial. I decide that I need to get some more comfortable clothing. At this point, the acid's starting to get into more full swing. 1 hour in. By this time, I've decided to change clothes. Things are starting to become real intense. I'm becoming confused and keep forgetting what I'm doing. In the process of getting changed, I forget what I'm doing while naked. I abandon getting clothes on because I can't remember what I was doing. So I'm naked, kind of roaming my house in confusion, with brief moments of clarity. In one of those moments, I realized that I was naked and super fucked up, and should probably close the blinds at least, so no neighbors would see. 1 hour, 15 minutes in. After closing the blinds, I sit down and take a half milligram of Etizolam, in hopes that it may prevent any unpleasant feelings and perhaps keep me from losing my mind too much. I begin watching the infomercial. I have the feeling that it's trying to indoctrinate me. I become stressed and decide to try to let myself be programmed by the TV in hopes that it will be nice and easy and painless. By the way, I only have a bandana on around my neck. I feel trapped by it and start to try to take it off, and the infomercial begins to rap along to my progress on getting it off. Finally, I get it off, and things feel happier. After this, time becomes impossible to keep track of or even guess about. I realize that I'm more twisted than I have ever been, and I begin to feel that I might be discovered in my condition and decide to go upstairs to my room. I lay down on the floor, realize that that's incorrect for a human to do. Then after some struggle, lay down in my bed. It's pitch black in my room because I didn't turn the light on. I lay down for what feels like hours. I begin to see some light outside my window, which probably was there the whole time from a street light or the stores down the street. I begin to feel worried that I might be found naked on my bed, which would also be peculiar for someone to do. So I finally figure out how to turn on my light, and I try to put on a sweatshirt. After fumbling with that for several minutes, I realize that it will not happen. I begin to get the feeling that something is beckoning me to open my door. At this point, I am feeling like I am basically in my little shell of my mind. I open the door and feel lighter. I realize that I opened the door, metaphorically, to the world. I have always struggled with being open with people, and here I was, stripped down and having just opened a little bit to the world. Then I begin to have a feeling/sense, an entity telling me to come outside. I stumble down the stairs to the front door. I grip the handle and feel myself being gently urged to open the door. I open it, close it behind me, and stand on the front porch. I get the feeling that I have stripped myself bare and am finally open to the world, and have the sense that I am now the second coming of Christ. I'm an atheist, but in my deluded state, everything made complete sense. All my struggles in life, depression, anxiety, drug addiction, pain, all suddenly had a purpose, a reason for all I had gone through. I felt an entity/had a feeling that I needed to get to people, so that everyone would know that everything is going to be okay, that I had signaled the end of war, and there would be only peace and prosperity. I sprinted down the street, through a field, and some blackberry bushes, lots of thorns, also made a lot of sense with the whole Jesus thing, kept running at full speed, onto the main road, down that, across traffic, through traffic, to the local 7-Eleven. I then was just outside of the store, proclaiming at the top of my lungs that we had done it. It was over, and peace has finally been attained. But very quickly, the police showed up and arrested me. Yet, I thought they were doing it for my good as Christ, and they were going to take me wherever I needed to be. As I was arrested, they asked if I had taken drugs. I said yes. Well, more yelled. I could not control my voice. I could only yell and scream, and my voice was shuddering. They asked if I had taken acid. Yes. Meth?
Yes.
PCP?
Yes. All of it.
I was very remorseful and felt bad for being the savior and still having fucked up, but felt good that everything was out in the open. They put me in the back of the squad car in handcuffs and started to drive me to the hospital, I believe. But I believed, back and forth, that either they were going to sacrifice me so that I could die for people's sins and peace would be attained, or that I would be united with Gaia and we would become a complete god. I believed that they were asking if I understood my rights and what was going to happen, and I think they were asking if I was ready for where I will be taken, which I just kept saying,
Yes, I am ready.
By this point, I am going in and out of blackouts. We roll up to the hospital, and there is this blinding light, and I am suddenly in the hospital. Before fading out, I look over and see my reflection in the railguard of the hospital bed, and I believe I have completed my quest. I black out, and then suddenly I am being processed through jail. I then come to again in my jail cell, uncertain of whether all of that had actually happened. My mom posted my bail and took me to her place in the town where she lives. I was terrified of the withdrawal and depression I may have to deal with since I will have stopped my meth habit, so when I grabbed my stuff from my place, I also grabbed my 3-MeO PCP and Deschloroketamine. I spend the week doing both of those and trying to process everything. At the end of the week, my mother and I get into a very unpleasant fight, and I call a friend to come pick me up so I can be in a better place until I can get a ride home, which I eventually do from my friends who I used meth with. So because of the fight I had with my mom, I have the fuck it's. I get to my friend's place, angry and not caring, and immediately start getting spun. I do that for a day and a half, then my friend with the acid shows up, and I ask if I can test his new batch. We both drop an unknown amount, didn't have a dropper, of an unknown potency batch. Terrible decision, I know, especially on the exact same mixture of things that screwed me up before. But we drive to another friend's house so my friend can sell some weed. While over there, psychosis starts to creep up on me again. I deal with it fine, and then we leave. We head back to our other friend's place, and I really begin to get concerned about his driving because he is also on acid. I begin to get the hallucinations, both visual and audio. We stop briefly as I am having a freak out, but resume our journey and make it to our friend's place. I'm too fucked up to stay, so I tell my friend to take me home. We make it a bit away, and I get a God complex. I believe that I am God and control everything that happens. I begin to hear voices. My friend stopped at a stop sign, and I bolted from the car. I was much too fast for him to process what had happened, and I began to run back towards our other friend's place. I ran probably close to 2 miles, ran through a field, fell in it, rode around in a ditch, got up. Then I ran down the road, over someone's fence into their backyard, out their gate, down another street, to what I thought was my friend's place. Well, it wasn't my friend's place. I kept trying to get into the door, which was locked. I kept bumping into the door, hearing my friends' voices as clear as day, which was a hallucination, making me think they were just messing with me. Eventually I gave up, turned towards the parking lot, and saw vehicles. I thought one of them was my friend's vehicle. Looking back, it definitely wasn't, but I tried getting into the car. I kept hearing his voice coming from inside the car, once again, thinking he just kept fucking with me. Eventually, I gave up and kept spinning in circles and bouncing between the 2 cars. Then I fell down. By the way, it was raining and cold this whole time. I fell into a puddle between the cars and laid there twitching and rolling around. Suddenly, there were police and EMTs. They kept asking me questions, but I couldn't remember anything or how to use words. I kept in mind that I had taken LSD, and I meant to say 25, as in LSD 25, but I got it mixed up and kept saying 21 over and over to all the questions they asked me. The EMTs and police were talking about me off to the side as I sat on the back of the ambulance. They kept saying that they thought I was homeless, a tweaker, a junkie, to which I would look over and desperately say, "No," sadly. I felt hurt that they would act like that. I mean, what did it matter what was going on with me? I needed help. Anyway, they eventually got me on the gurney and into the back of the ambulance. I blacked out for a few, then came to whomping like I had been on nitrous. I then had the delusion that everything that had happened had been a hallucination from a dental procedure, and following that one, I thought that years ago I had ordered 2CI online and that I had been hospitalized back then, and that I was only 13 or 14 again. Then I blacked out and was in the hospital with the delusion that I was an ancient being and a medical mystery. Eventually, the psychosis faded away, and I came to realize that I had just done it again. I was told my mom was coming to see me and pick me up. I had the hospital turn her away because I was so ashamed. Eventually, my friend called the hospital and came to get me. He picked me up and took me home. Those experiences were the craziest experiences of my life. They were also life-changing. I have since gone into outpatient treatment and am now 70 days clean from all those chemicals. I have learned tons of tools and learned to realize when I'm making poor decisions. I have also become incredibly healthy. I'm actually very happy that I went through all of that. I have overcome depression, and a lot of my anxiety has lessened. My spirituality has grown, not in a religious way, but my connection with the universe and love, compassion, and understanding. And things are going great. Well, I hope you enjoyed my experience and take something from it. Peace and love, people. Peace and love.